What's happening, everybody? Ryan Thomas here, live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, the Week 1 game day morning edition of the show. I look like Rocky Raccoon this morning. Didn't get the full night rest that I would have liked, but I guess it's just my nerves, my anxiety leading to this Week 1 battle between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. I am joined by a longtime buddy of mine and my Week 1 fantasy football opponent in the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Fantasy Football League, Nadif Taylor. What's going on, buddy?
How's it going, Ryan?
It's going good, man. I'm happy to have you on the show. I wanted to maybe give us a chance to have a little bit of banter back and forth. We got this Week 1 Week 1 fantasy football matchup, which is a big one. You got the beast of the AFC East team, and obviously I'm the Thomas Take, the host of the show, host of the league, all that stuff. So, Nadif, what were your thoughts on this draft that we did last week? I wanted to kind of pick your brain and get your thoughts on what you thought of, your team, and did you come away with whoever you wanted? Did you come away with, some guys saying, "Oh, I wish I would have got this guy instead"?
So I have a tendency to zig while everyone's zagging. I was real big on the whole zero RB scenario in years past. And for this one, this is my first 2 QB league. So I was interested to see how early and often those QBs are going to fly off the board. So they went fast. So the strategy was just kind of capitalize. Everyone in fantasy football tries to get as many running backs as they can. So with it being a 2 QB league and everyone just taking every QB imaginable, I just decided to grab all the running backs I could.
So you're saying that when it was 1, 2, and 3, my dad picked, Samuel White picked, and then I picked. I was third overall. What did you think when I took Pat Mahomes third overall?
That was a welcome to the first 2 QB league.
Yeah.
Even over Lamar, so that was the shocker for me.
Right. I deliberated over that decision for really only about 5 minutes because I didn't know where I was picking. And I opened it up and I'm like, crap, I'm picking third. So that was a big decision for me. And picking Mahomes over Lamar, I knew that I like watching Mahomes, and he's got a lot of primetime slates, being that they're the defending world champs. So I thought to myself, I'll be able to watch some KC games and actually enjoy them this year, for a reason. If they're going to be the powerhouse offense that I think they're going to be and that they are, I want a piece of that. So I didn't think, though, that I'd get Travis Kelce as well. So I was like, wow, I didn't think that would happen. So, but when I look at your team, Nadif, I'm talking about the strengths of your fantasy team this week. It is my team versus your team, and we've already had some players start off this matchup to where the point projection, you're projected to run away with it. I think by like 13 points or so. And when I look at the strength of your fantasy team, there are 3 guys that come to mind. And as you said, this was your first 2 quarterback league, so you were wondering, who do you take if some quarterbacks get picked early? And I look at your running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson, Todd Gurley. I mean, talk about that a little bit. And what do you think of those 3 running backs in your starting lineup this week?
I mean, matchups make everything. So for Gurley, I'm
Right.
not too concerned about Seattle, to be 100% honest with you. I feel like if they went and they got him a 1-year deal, they're going to run his legs until his leg can't go any longer. So same scenario with David Johnson. He has a lot to prove, and we know Bill O'Brien he's going to try to prove everyone wrong that he got the better end of the Hopkins trade. So I was just kind of hoping that they're going to overutilize him. And then Duke Johnson getting hurt, they had no other choice but to utilize him. So
Right.
And Zeke is Zeke. Zeke's going to eat no matter who he is. That's just your matchup, that proof person on the team.
Yeah, and I liked it, actually. As I saw, I'm keeping my eye on some teams, and how they're piecing their teams together. And I kept my eye on yours just to see what you did. And, obviously when I took Mahomes, I think you were the next pick, if my memory serves me right. So you got Zeke, and then, went back around and you took some receivers. I'm actually going to pull that up for the folks at home. But your wide receivers as well. I mean, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Deshaun Jackson has always been a stud. He's a little bit long in the tooth, but I'm thinking that he's going to have a good year now that he's back again in Philly and playing with Wentz. Hopefully, if Wentz stays healthy. But You also got Zach Ertz at tight end and Philadelphia's defense. So, pretty well-balanced team. And you finished with Ben Roethlisberger and Danny Jones. That was your plan, right? Like the whole draft, hoping that teams would maybe reach on some quarterbacks and then you'd be able to maybe take a quarterback late or two quarterbacks late.
Precisely. And I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes to the wide receivers, actually Kenny Galladay is supposed to be my 2, but unfortunately he went down with the injury. So
Right.
I'm all about depth, and Djax is a week 1 wonder. The past 4 years, he goes crazy. He's a top 10 wide receiver week 1. I don't know what it is. Him and Watkins just have this thing about week 1 where they're going to go off. So
right.
I'm just going to have to go with the gut with that one. And Ertz just fell. Ertz in the draft, you were talking about, Ertz plummeted. I believe I've got Ertz in the 9th round or something like that. So
wow.
Too much value to pass up.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, when I looked at your team, I'm like, man, it's pretty well balanced, and just throwing quarterbacks out there. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger can put up 250 a week, and ESPN fantasy analysts like Matthew Berry, talented Mr. Roto, he is so high on Danny Jones. Are you as high on Danny Jones as Matt Berry is, or are you just kind of throwing a dart at a dartboard, hoping it hits a bullseye?
Exactly the second one. And I know the first 4 matchups are very, very rough. They're not ideal at all. It's like
right.
with Pittsburgh and San Fran, and then the Bill. It's rough. It's like some of the top 5 defenses. So I did not go into the draft excited for Danny Dimes. It's just at that point, again, I wasn't sure how that second QB run was going to go, and I kind of caught the tail end of it. So we're just going to have to ride with old Danny Dimes and see what he can do.
I just realized when I'm looking at our matchup, I just realized that I have an empty roster spot to add another bench player.
I wasn't going to say a word.
I actually drafted Antonio Brown just for a good laugh at the end of the draft. I was like, let's just draft this idiot and see what people say. But yeah, I'm pumped up for this matchup, man. I'm pumped up for this league because we have a lot of people in it that, we went to Lockport High School together, former wrestling teammates. You wrestled a lot longer than I did. I only wrestled 1 season. You wrestled how many years?
And made the most of it.
Yeah.
7, I believe.
7? Wow. So shifting gears, we'll definitely talk about that when we get into the MMA portion of the show. But being that this is a sports show, it's not just a Bills show, folks. But I definitely wanted to dive into what are your expectations for this Buffalo Bills team? I mean, everybody's expectations, I feel like, are so high for the Buffalo Bills, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable because we do have to acknowledge that they are the Buffalo Bills. It's not like they haven't let us down a time or two in our lives, right? So, what are your expectations for the Bills this season?
I'm in the same boat as you. We're not used to winning and being a winning franchise, so no one really knows how to feel. To me, I think that winning the AFC East and getting that 2nd seed is everything. We need a bye, essentially. If we want to go far, we're going to make the playoffs. But how far we go is contingent on where we're seated. And I mean, we we have some tough matchups this year.
They do, yeah.
But I mean, is that defense wins championships. So if we could just sneak a few of those and we end up getting a bye somehow, that'll pay dividends. Because like we saw last year, any team can get upset.
Oh yeah, and I mean, take me through, as tough as it is to revisit, and I hate revisiting this. I really do. But it's the last thought that I have about the Bills, which was that awful, dreadful, pitiful playoff game where we saw they had that 16-point lead, and everything just imploded. What were your thoughts when that was taking place?
Well, the problem is not residing in Buffalo anymore and still being a Bills fan. Whoever you're around is going to be watching. And I reside in Cleveland, so they're another losing franchise. So the amount of texts that were coming through as I was watching that game were rough. I'm glad I was watching alone, but I'm everyone's only Bills fan friend. So I had at least 10 texts coming in, or 10 different people asking why Josh Allen is throwing the ball the wrong way. There's no way to defend it. It hurts. I have not rewatched anything. I don't even think about that game. I'm just looking forward to this
Yeah.
season and watching him redeem himself. He needed the experience. He got it. So let's see what he can do with it.
So when you're living in Ohio now, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately. Why do you say unfortunately?
I mean, there's pros and there are cons to Ohio. The pros are the Football Hall of Fame. The cons
Right.
is it's Ohio.
Right.
Nobody goes to visit Ohio, and no one wants to move to Ohio. You end up in Ohio.
That's what I've heard too. I've had friends along the way, obviously yourself and a few others that they only really went to Ohio for school and then they just kind of
Yeah.
get stuck there. Like, and that's kind of like you, right? You went to Kent State.
Oh yeah. In
Yeah.
case my wife is watching, I met my beautiful wife, and then I got
Shout out to the wife.
got the degree, got the wife, got the kid, and then staying put.
Yeah, how's the kid doing too? By the way, he
You're
looks
not
like
the
he's
only one with the lack of sleep. I'm running on 3 right now, and I'm ready. It's game day.
Well, I got no excuse. I'm single, no kid. I am such a football nut. I couldn't sleep. Like that's
Oh, yeah.
where my head's at.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you in particular. You know, your expectations are high, but they're realistic. I think
Yeah.
winning the AFC East for the first time since 1995. It should be a priority, to be honest, and that's kind of like the next step. And when I go back and I look at that playoff game, particularly being that they were playing in Houston, I'm thinking to myself, man, if there was 75,000 Orchard Park New Yorkers, banding together, from all different pockets, but basically saying that they're from Orchard Park by being there all at once, if they were there cheering on these Buffalo Bills, the game probably would have went a lot different. But in that game, one player that is going to get a lot of criticism or a lot of praise is the quarterback in Josh Allen. Are you buying or selling Josh Allen? Like, what is your analysis on Allen thus far?
I I'm a Bills fan through and through. I believe Josh Allen is phenomenal for fantasy. Real life Josh Allen and progressing this year, I don't think that he's ready to carry the team to a conference championship or a Super Bowl, but I believe he's enough to get it done with that defense. I think he's going to continue to progress. He's getting better year after year. There is a third year jump that always occurs. He grew a little beard. He's a new man. But as of right now, I think he's good enough with that defense. That defense is top 2 in the league. That thing is phenomenal. So he's good enough. Maybe in years to come, he'll be able to carry us on the offensive end. But he's enough for now.
Right. And that defense in particular, what is it that you like so much about this Buffalo Bills defense? What is it that really, jumps to mind when you think of how good this defense is?
The coaching. I mean, Sean McDermott is a defensive mastermind. I love that we extended him. I love that he's our head coach. We have honestly, in my opinion, a top 2 corner in Trey. I love every time you look at a tackle, you go, oh, there's Edmonds. He's everywhere on the field. They work as a unit, and that's just not something you can teach the way they gel together. So the fact that they have talent and consistency and all work together is just phenomenal to watch.
What do you think of the fact that in the draft, they go into the draft without a first round pick because they traded it to get Stephon Diggs, which I had zero problem with it because I looked at this draft from months prior and I'm like, this draft is so deep in wide receivers. It's more like they've taken shots at a rookie wide receiver before and it hasn't panned out. So let's bring in somebody that's established, even if we have to trade a little bit to get that guy. I was completely okay with it. I felt like at the time, a lot of Buffalo Bills fans were like, oh, we don't have a first round pick now, but we don't have a first round pick in that draft, and we come away with AJ Epinesa in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty pumped up for him. I've watched, bits and pieces of their training camp through social media, and he looks like he is going to be a force on this defensive line, paired with Ed Oliver, paired with the returning Harrison Phillips, and obviously Mario Addison, who they brought in as well. How pumped up are you for this front seven, really?
Oh my God. And the fact that in this day and age with the training camp and everything that's happening in 2020, continuity is everything. So not only are we returning a lot of starters, the people that we brought in, we basically brought in all of the Carolina Panthers that Sean
Right.
McDermott used to coach with. So they know the system. So the fact that everyone is educated on the system, we are a formidable force. Like in the draft was, oh my gosh, like that draft was the only thing we're missing. I wish we had another corner, but outside of that, like Zach Moss is someone that I was praying that we would get, and we got him. The only disappointing thing was my number one wide receiver on the board is not someone that everyone wanted. It was Brian Edwards. I loved that dude from the start. And my second favorite, I have a good friend named Tyler Robertson, and he's a big Cincinnati Bearcat fan. So he got to
Oh
see a
wow.
lot of UCF. And I really, really wanted this video. He sent me a video of Gabe Davis, and I fell in love. So I said, we need Brian Edwards or Gabe Davis. And when they picked him, I lost my mind. This draft, front seven, this is everything. We have two of the people that I wanted. So this is insane. I'm ready for this season. It's
So
time.
like it's time. I am chomping at the bit for this season to start. And I don't typically go to many games. I like to watch them on TV. Me being kind of like broadcasting nerd, I like to see who's broadcasting the game, and I just like to watch it on TV. It's just something that I enjoy. Um, and in terms of looking at this week one game, I mean, your expectations for the season we've dove into, but what do you think's going to happen today? Like, what in your head when you're looking at this game? What are you thinking as far as how this pans out?
I think the Jets are the perfect matchup for week one. The only because I love the Diggs trade. My only concern is how level-headed everyone is on the Bills, and sometimes Diggs can get a little AB-ish. But that being said, I don't know who's going to stop him on the Jets. So for them to experiment and give him his targets in week one with the Jets is the perfect scenario. Like this, we should dominate. Honestly, I actually took a bet on this game. And I have a 4-leg parlay, and you better believe the first thing I put on there was Bills -7.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. I agree with you on the whole Stephon Diggs thing too. Like, who on this now that they traded Jamal Adams, he basically pissed and moaned his way out of the Jets. And rightfully so. I mean, there's a lot of these players on the Jets that it seems like they don't really want to play for Adam Gase, and I've been on a bunch of shows lately, profiling this matchup and looking at the Jets and looking at the Bills. I mean, what a contrast in franchises. Like the Bills have continuity from the top down, ownership, GM, head coach, where the Jets are they're a dumpster fire. I mean,
Adam
I don't
Gase.
think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna have a good season at all, Nadif.
Adam Gase.
Adam Gase. You thinking that Adam Gase is you're fading Adam Gase winning Coach of the Year?
If I could bet on that, I don't care if it was -6,000, I would place that bet.
Oh man, yeah, I'm pumped up, man. I'm really excited. I think that this needs to be a rout to me. Like they need to win this game decisively to set the tone for the rest of the season and say, hey, we're AFC East front runners. We're a powerhouse. So moving on from football, though, obviously you're a massive MMA fan like myself. Last night we did have Bellator MMA, Patchy Mix, Juan Archuleta. Patchy Mix came up short. Did you watch that fight last night?
I saw bits and pieces. I saw the irony is I saw the first 2 rounds where Mix was looking good.
Yeah.
And then I fell asleep and I looked over and this morning and I had no idea what happened. It looked like per the articles he just kind of ran out of steam, got carried into those deep waters.
Yeah, pretty much like those first 2 rounds, he was fighting to his strengths. And then the third round, Juan Archuleta was able to avoid the grappling exchanges. And after that, it was almost like an adrenaline dump for Mix in the fourth and fifth round. So Juan Archuleta's tough as nails too. He's fast. There was a definite speed disparity between Archuleta and Mix. Mix being a little bit slower, and I think his height actually was a little bit of a problem. His height advantage because he stood so tall that Archuleta was really digging to the body really well. So it was a fun fight, but. I wanted to ask you, off the top of your head, what fights are you looking forward to the most in the near future?
Well, Pettis isn't fighting, or Anthony Pettis isn't fighting anytime soon, so I have to use my head here. At that juncture, I would say obviously the Costa Izzy fight is huge. You can tell that it's legit bad blood. There's so much animosity between them, and it builds the fights. I don't really know who's going to win that fight. Like my betting side is telling me to bet Costa because he very well could win that fight. But my head is saying I will always go with a counter striker, and Izzy is the best of the best. I think Izzy is actually, in my opinion, one of the most beatable champions that reside in the UFC right now. He's one that can definitely lose. When you really look at his body of work, it's not too impressive. There's a lot of asterisks next to it, beating Anderson Silva in his 40s, beating his wrestlers he fought were Yoel and Gaslam, and neither one of them shot a takedown. Like, there's some asterisks next to it. But Costa is tailor-made for Izzy to look good. All he does is charge like a bull, and Izzy's the one thing he's phenomenal at is counter-striking. So I think he's going to catch him.
So out of all the current champions, you think that Izzy does have the shot to lose out of all of them? Would you say though that this is Izzy's toughest test to date? From it sounds like what you're saying that it is.
I believe that if Yoel came out and used his strengths, that would have been his toughest fight. But I don't even want to think about that fight either.
That fight was awful.
As of now, I would say, yeah, Paulo probably presents the biggest problem. But at the same time, if he goes charging in, Izzy can outpoint him easily.
What do you think about the trash talk between these two guys? Because this has been brewing for a long time. Like even prior to Israel Adesanya winning the middleweight title, Paulo Costa's been calling him out, saying he wants to fight him. He wanted to fight him before Izzy fought Gastelum and all that stuff. Do you think that this bad blood is like genuine and authentic, or do you think that they're just pumping up the fight?
I think it's a combination. I do feel that Costa felt disrespected. I watched an interview between the two where they said Izzy started it, and he was saying that he didn't know who Costa was, like in one of their weigh-ins or something. They were next to each other, and Costa felt disrespected that he didn't know who he was, or vice versa. It was something weird. It was kind of subtle, but it obviously began to grow and grow. Izzy's a lot more animated when the cameras are around, but I don't think they actually like each other. He just goes above and beyond when the cameras are around.
That fight with Israel Adesanya and Yoel Romero was so bad that it made, going to Buffalo Wild Wings for the fights, it's like, okay, thankfully they play them, and you can obviously enjoy some food, drinks, whatever. But man, their booths are so uncomfortable, and watching and sitting there and watching that and waiting for that to be the main event after Joanna and Weili Zhang just completely, destroyed one another. It was really man, that was disappointing, right? That was a disappointment.
It was better that you were at B-Dubs and not at your home, because then you would have just fallen asleep. So.
Right, that, and I would have had to pay for it, which would have been even worse. So it was pretty brutal. So you kind of touched on your pick there. You think Izzy will win this fight?
Yes, but then I think he loses the title whoever he fights next.
Oh wow, that's a bold take right there. You think that he's got the goods? Like I've watched both of them, especially lately on UFC Fight Pass, and Israel Adesanya is such a counter striker, and Paulo Costa just moves forward. I'm wondering if Costa's going to get embarrassed in this fight if Israel Adesanya can counter like he has before. Is that what you see, kind of too?
To an extent. It's not that Izzy's a power puncher, though. It's just that he's so precise. So he could drop him, and I think he's going to rock him. He won't knock him out clean. If he does finish him, it'll just be a TKO. But I more or less see him dropping him a few times and just outpointing him, especially in the later rounds.
There's talk out there. There's rumblings that Paulo Costa weighs like 220 pounds right now. I mean, what the? I mean, he has to cut down to 185 as of what's fight day, September 29th. I mean, that's 16 days away. That's over 50 pounds. That's so. I mean, that's gonna play an impact on the fight. You know that as well as I do.
Oh yeah, the later round is all Izzy, so it's just a matter of if we get there.
So a fight that I'm really looking forward to, and it's a little bit sooner thank God, then Israel Adesanya and Paulo Costa is Colby Covington versus Tyron Woodley. And unfortunately, there's no belt on the line for this fight. There is no pageantry of it being a world title fight, unfortunately, but I don't even think it needs that. And those are the fights that I like, the fights that you don't need to have a belt on the line to push it. You don't need to fight. You don't need to prop up the belt and say, this is for the world title. As long as these two guys willing to get in there, duke it out, and obviously the bad blood for this fight is pretty palpable.
Talk about bad blood.
Yeah. What do you think of this fight in terms of like the styles, both being wrestlers? How do you see this fight shaking out?
I mean, I am not the. I mean, I kind of go with the general public in reference to feelings towards Colby Covington. However, you cannot take anything away from his fighting game. He's good. He can back up his talk. So, I mean, although Woodley has the higher pedigree in wrestling, he doesn't utilize it. He uses it more or less kind of like Chuck Liddell does, just to defensively make sure he don't get taken down, and that he's just fell in love with his striking. So I don't think my heart says Woodley can catch him, but my mind is saying just styles make fights, and this is perfect for Covington. Like, Covington should go out there. He won't finish him, but I believe it's going to kind of look similar to the Robbie Lawler versus Covington fight.
It's crazy because like this fight should have happened 2-3 years ago. It really should have. When Woodley was the champ and Colby Covington was the interim champ, the fact that this fight didn't happen, I thought it was really stupid, to be quite honest. Like putting Woodley in there with Darren Till over Covington, putting Woodley in there even with Usman over Colby Covington. As cringeworthy as Colby Covington is with his whole "Make America Great Again" gimmick, that is pretty annoying. I think it's safe to say. Um, you know, he earned that shot, and the fact that he didn't get it over the actual champ at that time, Tyron Woodley, it's kind of like I think this fight is a little bit too little, too late. And I think in the case of Tyron Woodley, it's definitely too little, too late because these last two fights for Tyron Woodley, to be honest, he's lost 10 straight rounds in his pro career. Um, getting dominated over the course of the last 10 rounds of his fight career. What do you think of Woodley, the state of Tyron Woodley right now in terms of his pro career? Do you think he's at the end? Oh, I can't hear you. I think you might have muted yourself. Oh, there he went. I'll have to re-add him into the stream. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what was going on with the stream, but yeah, I think Tyron Woodley is a little bit at the end. Let's see if we got him on here. You still there? Can't hear you. Yeah, we're having some issues hearing you here. But I think in terms of Woodley and his prowess at this point in his career, it's definitely not looking good in terms of his prior state of his fighting career, where he was winning, dominant fashion as a champ, beating Darren Till, getting past, some of the opponents that he did to win the title. I'm gonna try to get Nadif back in here. Let me see here. I'm gonna try to get him back on. Sorry about that, folks. I think he was having some technical issues, and that's the one thing. Using new software, using new things. I definitely, he's never used this before, so it is a little bit tough. You there?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Awesome.
Dude, I have no idea what's going on with this. This is awful.
Yeah, doing it from a phone, it is a little bit different. I don't know how it looks on a phone, to be honest, because I've never used it on a phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I was just kind of retouching on it. My question was, do you think Woodley is at the end?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I think prime for prime, Woodley would stomp out Covington, but the point of their career right now, One's going up, one's going down. Unfortunately, I think that Woodley, we've seen the best of Woodley.
Yeah, and those last two fights in particular, the fight over Kamaru Usman where he lost the title, it was a dominant. I mean, he got whooped in that. I mean, dominated in that fight. He didn't get really cut up or anything like that, but Kamaru Usman's pressure, he neutralized him, controlled him, everything, bell to bell. And then the fight with Gilbert Burns, it was so frustrating to watch because it was like there were moments where Tyron Woodley could have really opened up. He just wouldn't let his hands go.
Yeah.
It just one of those things where I'm hoping that if this is the bad blood fight that they have pushed it as the last 2-3 years, Tyron Woodley better let his hands go in this one. I want to see a back and forth brawl.
Well,
The fight.
Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, you go. You're good.
I'm just saying, at least when we're talking about fights, just before we go over to Gaethje and Khabib, that fight card next week though is actually better than the UFC 253 pay-per-view. Like, I don't understand how this is on free TV. I mean, Cerrone versus Price, everyone's favorite guy, Khamzat, going in against Gerald Meerschaert. I mean, you have Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann on that card, Kevin Holland and Darren Stewart. Like, this is a pay-per-view card on free TV. And I honestly see the main card. I see all of them being finishes except for the main event.
I agree with you completely. I'm glad you touched on that too, because the UFC, it's very weird how they've scheduled things lately. Like, I feel like these TV cards have actually been better than the pay-per-views. Yeah. Like last night's card with Michelle Waterson and Angela Hill. That was, I mean, I don't know if you watched that fight, but if you have ESPN Plus, you can go back and watch it. That fight was ridiculous. I mean, they went bell to bell. There was no moment in the fight where there was a lull. Like, Michelle Waterson was going straight after Angela Hill. Angela Hill she landed an axe kick on Angela Hill's jaw. Like, it was, I mean, shades of Mirko Krokop. Like, it was, man, the fifth and final round, it was tied 2-2. And Michael Bisping was, commentating the fight, and he's like, someone's got to let their hands go. And being that there's no crowd, it just has this. I think the atmosphere is amazing without fans in the stands. What do you think of that?
I love it. It reminds me of our wrestling days. All you hear is their you just hear their corners, which in essence is like our parents in the wrestling match. That's about it. That's all you hear. So this is one of the few sports where they can pull it off with no crowd.
Yeah, I was laughing at myself the other day because I posted a Bill's tweet and Coach Scapoletti liked it, and I looked and I'm like, is it there's only one Coach Scapoletti that I know, and it's the one that was my wrestling coach, our wrestling coach. So I looked, and he's been following me for a while, and I didn't even know it. It was pretty funny.
You made it.
Yeah, I made it. Yeah, that legitimizes me, I guess. I need Pat Seidel to get on Twitter. I don't know what the chances are of that.
Man, Seidel, that was my guy. The fun fact for you, I had Steve Conjarity used to come into the wrestling room once in a while, and my wife, actually in Ohio, her cousin is like first cousins with the Conjaritys, so it's weird. Like, out of all the people to run into, I literally married someone that's related to the Conjaritys.
That's awesome. Lockport is like its own small world, and everybody just kind of knows everybody. It's pretty cool. But moving on to the next fight, the Khabib versus Justin Gaethje fight. This fight, man, I really don't know how to look at it. I've hemmed and hawed on how to predict it, and when I watched Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson, I remember when that fight was announced, I thought Tony Ferguson, I just got this fear that Tony Ferguson was taking a massive risk, and my fear was that he would lose, and the Khabib versus Tony fight, the Khabib versus Tony fight's dead.
It's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. Ever. Thanks, Justin Gaethje. I mean, but, bravo for the performance, but what the hell, man? Like, I wanted to see that fight.
Maybe. I mean, with DP dropping out against Tony, maybe Tony's the backup in case something happens COVID related. But that's about it. I don't think otherwise it'll never. And Khabib's only fighting 2 more times, so I'm sorry, Tony, it's over.
Yeah. Oh my God. Just the thought of what you said, Tony being the backup plan. It's like I don't want to have a glimmer of hope, only for the door to just be shut in my face. Like it's just it's too tough. When you look at Khabib and Justin Gaethje, though, how do you see this fight? Like your breakdown in your head, how do you see it going down?
So initially, I was with everyone, and I was saying if any man is going to beat Khabib, it's going to be Gaethje, and I still abide by that belief. The problem is, it's not going to happen. I really, really want to, bet for the underdog. Everyone wants to root for the underdog, but the problem is, Gaethje is most known for his leg kicks. Those things just leg kick you to death. The thing is, if you leg kick Khabib, so all he's going to want to do is take you down. So if
Right,
Gaethje can't leg kick, what is he supposed to? I mean, he can outstrike Khabib most definitely, but it's not
right,
as if Khabib is a slouch on the feet, and he's going to get you down eventually. And the other thing that scares me is I've never seen Gaethje on his back. So what does that look like? We know what
right.
Khabib on top looks like, and we know there's a 98% chance he gets the takedown eventually. He may not get the first, but he'll get it eventually. So what does Justin do on his back? We have no idea. I don't know.
That's a really good point. And as far as me visualizing Justin Gaethje on his back with a Khabib on top of him, I mean, I want to see Khabib get challenged. Like I
I
wanted to
know.
see Anderson. I wanted to see Anderson Silva get challenged. I wanted to see my goat George St. Pierre get challenged. I wanted to see these guys get challenged. Even Mighty Mouse Johnson, when he was going on his run, which I think it's far too much overlooked in my opinion. But I just don't know if there is a challenge out there for Khabib Nurmagomedov. Like if this is his last second to last fight, and he does get past Justin Gaethje, which I don't want to completely write off Justin Gaethje, but
No.
Khabib Nurmagomedov is, I mean, he's an elite. He might be one of the best ever. So if he does get past Justin Gaethje, and the Tony fight doesn't happen, who would you want to see him fight in his last fight? Do you think he'd get the Conor? They do the Conor rematch, or do you think they do?
For your benefit, for the sake of the Thomas Take Sports podcast, I hope that your boy GSP stays smart and does not go down the lightweight. A 39-year-old GSP in a weight class lower than he's ever been against Khabib
Right.
is asking for trouble. I know that's what Khabib wants. I think, and he said he's not leaving 55. He's the champ, and when Khabib says stuff, he means it. He also said he's not fighting Conor out of respect. He said he doesn't deserve a fight against him anymore. So
Right.
I have absolutely no idea what that man's gonna. It looks like he wants to do like just a money fight, but at this point, I don't know who that is. So I mean, if Gaethje pulls off the upset, I'm assuming he's gonna want that back, and they'll just run it back. But if Khabib wins, I have not the slightest clue.
What I'm really hoping for, like as far as scenarios that play out, I don't want to see George fight again. Like I do, as a fan of his, I do, but I don't think you could top the coming back after 4 years, fighting Michael Bisping for the middleweight title, winning that middleweight title in pretty epic fashion. I mean, that fight was amazing on both George's part and Bisping's part. The fact that George took Bisping down, got damaged from top position, then let Bisping back up, and then dropped Bisping, and then choked him out. It was crazy. Like I could have never anticipated that fight ending that way. Out of the bunch of different ways I thought of in my head prior to that fight taking place, and I think that's the beautiful thing about MMA. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you could guess and try to figure it out, but you never really know. And when I think of Khabib and Justin Gaethje, I'm shocked that Gaethje hasn't tried to wrestle in his fights. And he has a wrestling acumen. He was a Division 1 wrestler.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think Justin Gaethje just ignores the wrestling completely?
wrestlers fall in love with hitting people. They're never allowed to do so, and when they get good at it, they fall. And you see it time and time again. Like when you look at Stipe, he's a wrestler. He's not
Mm-hmm.
just how many he shot against Francis, and justifiably so. But when you think of Stipe, you think of him knocking people out. You look at Gaethje, the aforementioned Tyron Woodley. Like, all of these guys are Chuck Liddell. All of them were wrestlers, and not one time do you think of them taking people down. When you look at them, you think of all their knockouts. It's just they fall in love with it, and it's in their head. DC. Like,
Right.
DC is an Olympic wrestler, and when he lost to Stipe the second time, he shot one takedown. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
all it was.
I definitely want to talk to you about that too. But yeah, we'll definitely dive into that. So when I'm thinking of guys that fall in love with throwing their hands that are wrestlers, the first guy that comes to my mind is Dan Henderson. I mean, that guy was an amazing wrestler, and he's known for knocking people out. He's known for the Michael Bisping knockout. It's one of the best knockouts ever. So the fact that, Justin Gaethje says that he likes to create these collisions and these car crashes, I mean, you want to create a car crash with Khabib, that's pretty ballsy. That's pretty ballsy. So I'm pretty pumped up for that fight. I think that's the fight that I'm looking forward to the most, because it just has this mystique around it, with Khabib being the dominant champ that he is, and Justin Gaethje coming off of that big win over Tony Ferguson. Touching on it again, though, what the future could hold. I'm hoping, and hear me out here, I'm hoping that if Khabib does get past Justin Gaethje, I'm hoping that Tony Ferguson wins his next fight, no matter who he fights. And I hope the UFC just says, look, you took the Justin Gaethje fight on short notice. We're going to call it a loss on your record, obviously. But let's not, knock you down a couple notches for that. You get one win back on your record. It just washes that loss off clean. And we'll give you another shot at the Khabib fight. The seventh time that they would have made that fight, hopefully a reality. And I hope that that's Khabib's last fight. That's the fight that I've been wanting to see for years, Nadif, like 4 or 5 years. And if we don't get it, oh man, it'll be very, very depressing.
I just thought about who Khabib should fight after he takes out Gaethje for his final fight. If he wants to go out and have legendary GOAT status, he needs to beat the GOAT, Anthony Pettis. He's got to beat the GOAT to be the GOAT. No one, he poses the most problems for Khabib.
I would say Khabib would most definitely go through Anthony Pettis like a hot knife through butter. I love Anthony Pettis. I love him as much as you do, but that would not. I remember when Khabib and Donald Cerrone was booked. And that fight never happened. That was actually booked. Like, it was on a poster. Like, it's out there, somewhere in the Twitter sphere. But yeah, I thought that fight was going to happen, and I remember thinking, oh no, like I don't. There's certain fighters that you just don't want to see lose like that. And Donald Cerrone is one of them. Anthony Pettis is one of them. Carlos Condit is one of them. Like, all these guys that kind of pay. You just don't want to see them lose. Not that, Khabib and Carlos Condit would fight, but, there's just certain, even DC, even DC, like going back to, DC and Stipe, I look at that fight and I'm like, man, he looked kind of old in that fight, right?
Prime for prime, I still believe DC is the better fighter. It's just, and it's not like Stipe's old, like, I mean, young. Stipe is 38? Like, he's an old man too. It's just, think of DC 3 years ago, and then look at DC now, and that's a totally different being. Like, it's the same. Like, you say 3 years isn't a lot, but DC at 38 he beat Stipe. So, like, it's 3 years makes a difference when you're that old. So,
yeah, I agree. I looked at that fight, watching that second round. I mean, DC zigged when he should have zagged that second round. I just watched it again recently, and there was a moment in the fight where he was trying to cut the corner, and he went the one way, but then he continued to go that way, and Stipe just followed him, and he just threw right hooks. And that was it. I mean, that second round, if that cage was bigger, rather than the 25 feet, if that cage was bigger, DC would have fallen flat onto the canvas. He wouldn't have had the cage to fall back on, and Stipe was in this weird position. He had Stipe in this weird position with his grip locked, and Stipe was just like punching him like this. If that cage was bigger, I think DC would have got finished. I really, there's no way of knowing, but there would have been a better chance of DC getting finished in that second round. And man, it was an impressive performance from Stipe, no doubt about it. But man, I was really pulling for DC to have that storybook ending.
And totally off topic. You were talking about fights that you're looking forward to. I don't know if I can't remember if I mentioned Brandon Royval, but that is a fighter right now to look out for. I don't know if you're aware of his like accomplishments and who he is. He's kind of new. It's only going to be his second fight.
Yeah.
But at flyweight, you're used to just seeing really fast guys getting decisions. This guy is a finisher. He is literally the reincarnation of Anthony Pettis. I swear, this dude is. My favorite fighters are Anthony Pettis and Dominic Cruz, and I know they're at the end of their careers. I really just want to see them fight one more time and retire, to be honest. So I need a new hotness, and I'm telling you, he's fighting on this. He's not the co-main of 253, but like right before the Dom Reyes fight. He's fighting Kai Kara France. This dude has 11 wins, 10 finishes. Like this dude, you don't see this at flyweight. He throws Showtime's kicks, throws flying triangles. He's crazy. And a cardio of Colby Covington. He's someone to watch out for.
I love Kai Kara France too, and I have seen little bits and pieces of it was Brandon Royval.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen little bits and pieces of him. I think when he was fighting in another organization, and I'm like, man, this dude is different. At 125, we haven't really seen true finishers there. Since Cejudo and Benavidez in his prime. That's another guy, Nadif, that Benavidez when he lost to Davison Figueiredo, that was really depressing. Like that's probably the first time I've actually watched a fight and actually cringed while watching it, like just due to the damage and the ref. I mean, the one thing like over the last, like 10 years since we, graduated from LHS, I guess you could say, MMA has grown leaps and bounds. It was growing when we were in high school. It was like peak, growth with like Forrest Griffin and, Rampage and all those guys, that post Ultimate Fighter stuff. And, I think MMA is in trouble with certain things. And I want your take on this to kind of wrap this up to end the show. As far as judging goes and as far as reffing goes, what are your thoughts on the state of that within MMA? I just tend to think that it is not in a good position.
No, I mean it happened again. I mean Dana blasted another ref yesterday. I mean the whole Do you see the Ed Herman debacle?
It was awful. Yeah.
I mean I bet Herman, so I was happy, but it's such a tough sport to know. Like we see so much going on when you have the analysts that have a cage side view and then we have the cameras. We can see everything. So I do feel for the refs that sometimes, I mean, we're zoomed in and we can see stuff that they can't see, or they're behind them so they can't see everything. But I can defend the refs to an extent. Herb's on a little bit of a stretch right now. But hopefully, I mean, they figure that out. The judging, on the other hand, is a little out of control. I mean, especially I was very, very profitable at Fight Island. I need to go back to Fight Island because those refs are all volume. They did not care about takedowns. When you go back, I was 100% with strikers versus wrestlers. That whoever the judges were in Fight Island did not care if you got a takedown. It was all whoever landed the most strikes. So there's a lot of inconsistency. Maybe there's some more training or something they can do, or make it a little more unified. But yeah, it definitely is an issue right now.
And you touched on it too. Like these refs, the judges, the judges, they're boxing judges. Like they've built careers on being boxing judges. Boxing is nothing like mixed martial arts. It's a completely different. And I mean, in terms of how you score boxing, even in MMA, it's different because there's kicks involved. Like it's just there's just a lot of different intricacies to it. And for judges that are boxing judges to judge an MMA fight and score volume punching higher than a takedown,
it's asinine.
It is mind blowing, especially when a takedown. If you're taken down and you're on your back, it's going to take you at least 30 seconds to get back to your feet, and that's if you're in a good position in the octagon. If you're in the center of the cage taken down, you're most likely kept down against an elite wrestler like Khabib. So
Exactly.
the fact that these judges don't score that, it just, I don't know. I feel like there needs to be like reffing reform,
Hmm.
MMA judging reform. Like there just needs to be from the top to bottom, just an uproar on. More people need to talk about it because it's just. I mean, Dan Hardy's YouTube channel, he's talking about it all the
Oh yeah.
time, and it's
Oh
just
yeah.
such a like all these guys have to be feeling like they're broken records, talking about how MMA and the judging and the reffing needs to change, and I
I
hope it
mean,
does.
here's a crazy thought. How about we let ex-fighters be the judges? I mean, they know what actually counts. Like, I mean, if they're having them be announcers, why can they not get them trained to actually score the? Who's going to know more about what's going on in the cage than someone that's been in the cage? Like, I don't
Right.
understand what like the big difficulty is, but something has to be done.
I think ex fighters should be judges, and the closest ref to the sport that actually, I mean, his success rate was through the roof was Big John McCarthy, and ever since he retired, it's like Herb has been thrown for a loop since Big John retired. I mean,
The funny,
Herb was like Herb and Big John were like the gold standard. And when
Mhm.
Big John retired, it was up to Herb to like take the torch. He dropped the torch a long time ago. Like
And Herb
this
is
is
an
just
ex-fighter. Like I don't
right, right,
understand. I mean, he was not a good one. What's his record? Like 2-3. Like it's not
right.
good. But he knows. Like I don't understand. I don't know.
Yeah,
Drives me nuts.
it blows my mind. And as much as I love Big John McCarthy, commentating and getting fat paychecks from Bellator, commentating, I think it's awesome. But man, I miss that guy.
Yeah,
he was the best.
he was.
Not even close. Like was never a controversy with Big John McCarthy. But yeah, Nadif, man, this was a pleasure and good luck today,
Yeah.
man. This week one matchup is going to be good.
So,
I hope I start my season off with a win. You know, best of luck.
so I actually have I have two quick things for you, B.
Oh,
Before
sure.
we head on out.
Yeah.
One, a word of confidence for you because Terry is gonna be shadowed by Slay, and I don't think that Philly is scared of Antonio Gandy Golden or Steven Sims, so I am petrified of starting Terry McClure. He very well could goose me. So keep an eye on that, and the fact that I have Djax out there. He's a wild card too. So it's going to be a lot tighter than the projections say. Secondly, let's do a Thomas take first, and I have a starter sit question for you. Not the
Okay.
Thomas take league, different league. All right. I
Okay.
got. Would you start in your flex? Would you trust the newly reformed David Montgomery? Would you trust Devontae Parker, who was also hurt, or would you trust Hollywood Brown
Oh, I'd go Hollywood all day.
all day? Okay.
All day. Yeah, I'd
All
go
right.
Hollywood all day. I'm really big on Baltimore's offense this year. I think they know that they have to be better. I mean, post that playoff loss, and they know that they got to be better in order to compete with Kansas City at all. Their offense needs to be a little bit better. So I think Lamar is going to have a good year passing, and I think Hollywood Brown is going to reap the reward of that for sure.
All right. He's going to go in my lineup because Thomas
Yep.
Take said so. And I got
I,
one
I'm,
more
I'm.
for you. I got one more.
Oh yeah.
You ever watch The League?
Yes, I did.
I'm the dude that tinkers nonstop. So one more question for you. I have Stafford, and he's hurt. Or not he's hurt. Kenny Galladay most likely isn't going to play. Danny Amendola's hurt. All of their running backs are hurt or 60 years old. So I'm kind of scared to start Stafford. So would you start Stafford regardless? Would you start Ryan Tannehill because AJ Brown's also hurt? Or would you go to your old buddy Tyrod?
Oh my Lord.
It's
Good
rough.
God. Is there anyone else available?
These are waiver wire QBs. I had Stafford as my starter, but I'm petrified of him without.
Oh, okay. So you were thinking
I was gonna
that
hit the waiver wire.
you were gonna look at the okay. I mean, Stafford against Chicago is a tough matchup. Chicago's defense is really good, but Mitch Trubisky is so bad that I think Mitch Trubisky is just so awful that I think they're going to give Detroit more opportunities. Um, I think Stafford's safe. I think he's always safe to get you 18 to 20 at least. So, who is Tennessee playing?
Denver.
Yeah, man. I would still go with Stafford. I would. I would
Okay.
rock steady with Matt Stafford. I'm a Matt Stafford believer. And Ryan Tannehill, I mean, that playoff game, Derrick Henry ran for his life against New England. Ryan Tannehill had like 20 more yards than I did passing. So it was, or like 70 more yards than me. So it was, I don't know about Ryan Tannehill. I'm a little, that's an RT that I'm skeptical of.
All right. All right, that's it. Hollywood and Stafford in the lineups.
Yep.
Thomas take, baby.
You got it. Hey, Nadif, we'll do this again. I think, each and every week for the folks that are watching this, I started the Thomas Take Sports Podcast Fantasy Football League. I got, some longtime buddies, some avid listeners, kind of join them together. And I'm going to have who I play on the show each Sunday morning. So Nadif is my week one opponent. Next week, I got Johnny Rindak. He'll be coming on. And I'm very excited for this fantasy league. There's a lot of people actually keeping their eye on it, that aren't even in the league. And that's really cool. I've always wanted to kind of make a fantasy league that everybody can enjoy and kind of tune into. So week one, here we come, man. You ready?
I'm ready. I'll leave you with this, right? So my shirt says it all. It says, I may live in Ohio, but on game days, my heart's with Buffalo. I'm ready.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, Nadif, it was a pleasure, and best of luck to you in this matchup, buddy.
Likewise, it's going to be closer than you think.
It will be close. I know that. Take care, man.
Likewise. Bye.
Bye-bye. That was Nadif Taylor, good buddy of mine, former wrestling teammate. We wrestled back in high school at Lockport High School, and man, I get nostalgia just talking to him. There's a lot of memories talking to Nadif. So yeah, he wrestled a little bit longer than I did. I only wrestled one season my senior year. Nadif was actually a captain of the team. Really solid guy, really good leader. His dad was my interpersonal communications teacher, and his dad passed, a couple of years back, and he was a phenomenal guy. To Nadif, wanted to part with this. Your dad would be really, really proud of you with everything you got going on as far as the wife, the kid, everything like that. His dad was a gem of a human being. So definitely wanted to shout out to Nadif there at the end of the show. Very much looking forward to this matchup with Nadif. I think that it's going to be really close, but that's what I like, man. I like the competition. Feed me more. Bring it. Let's go. Ryan Thomas, parting ways on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. And go Bills.